March 1943. Lair, East Prussia. Adolf Hitler stands before a scale model of the Messerschmitt Me, Germany's revolutionary jet fighter. The sleek aircraft, powered by twin turbojet engines instead of propellers, represents a technological leap years ahead of Allied aviation. Professor Willy Messerschmitt presents the specifications with barely contained excitement. Mein Führer, the Me achieves 870 km per hour, 540 miles per hour. No Allied fighter can match this speed. The Spitfire reaches 600 km per hour. The P-51 Mustang reaches 700. The Me is 170 km per hour faster than anything the enemy possesses. Armament? Hitler asks. 4 30mm Mk108 cannons. Each shell weighs 330 grams, 10 times heavier than machine gun bullets. A single hit will destroy any bomber. 2-second burst delivers 40 shells. Devastation. Hitler circles the model, examining it from every angle. His eyes show the characteristic gleam that appears when he encounters new technology, a mixture of fascination and grandiosity. Production timeline? We can begin mass production immediately, Messerschmitt responds. The prototypes have proven the design. We have manufacturing capacity. With priority allocation of resources, we could produce 1,000 aircraft by the end of 1943. Reichsmarschall Hermann Göring, commander of the Luftwaffe, adds his support. Mein Führer, this aircraft will re-establish German air superiority. American bombers are devastating our cities because our fighters cannot reach them at altitude before they drop their bombs. The Me can climb to 30,000 feet in 7 minutes, half the time of conventional fighters. It will massacre bomber formations. Hitler nods slowly. Excellent. This is the technological superiority that will win the war. One question. Can it carry bombs? The room falls silent. Messerschmitt exchanges glances with Göring. This is not the question they expected. Mein Führer, Messerschmitt begins carefully. The Me is designed as an interceptor. Its purpose is destroying enemy bombers. Adding bomb-carrying capacity would compromise its performance. I asked if it can carry bombs, Hitler interrupts coldly. Not if it should. Can it? Technically, yes, with modifications. External hardpoints could carry 500 kilograms of bombs. But then it will be a fighter bomber, Hitler declares, a blitz bomber. Fast enough to evade enemy fighters, capable of striking targets with precision. This is what Germany needs, a weapon that attacks, not just defends. Göring objects carefully. Mein Führer, our most critical need is bomber defense. American and British raids are destroying our industrial capacity. We need interceptors to stop them. We need offensive capability. Hitler's voice rises. For 3 years we've been defending France from invasion, defending our cities from bombing. I'm tired of defending. The Me will be a blitz bomber. It will strike terror into the enemy. Imagine, a bomber so fast that no fighter can intercept it. The enemy will be helpless. But Mein Führer, Messerschmitt protests. Converting the Me to fighter bomber role will require months of redesign. The airframe must be strengthened to carry bombs. The balance will change, requiring new flight characteristics. The bomb release mechanisms must be designed and tested. This will delay production by at least 6 months, possibly a year. Then you will work faster, Hitler responds. I want the Me fighter bomber operational by the end of 1943. You have your orders. After Hitler leaves, Göring turns to Messerschmitt. This is madness. We have the most advanced fighter in the world, and he wants to make it a bomber. We have no choice, Messerschmitt responds quietly. The Führer has decided. The Me will be a fighter bomber. We'll do the conversions, suffer the delays, and pray the war lasts long enough for it to matter. What neither man realizes. Hitler's decision will delay the Me-262's operational deployment by 18 months. By the time the jet fighter finally enters service in large numbers, it will be too late to affect the war's outcome. The Me-262, Germany's most advanced weapon, will become a case study in how obsession with wonder weapons can squander technological advantage. April 1943. Peenemünde, Germany. At Germany's secret rocket research facility on the Baltic coast, engineers prepare for the first successful test flight of the A4 rocket, later known as the V-2. General Walter Dornberger, military commander of the rocket program, watches as technicians fuel the massive rocket. Standing 46 feet tall and weighing 12.5 tons, the A4 represents the culmination of a decade of research into liquid-fueled rocketry. Beside Dornberger stands a young engineer whose brilliance has been essential to the rocket's development. Werner von Braun, age 31, technical director of the program. If this test succeeds, Dornberger observes, we'll have created the world's first long-range ballistic missile, a weapon that can strike London from launch sites in Holland, 300 kilometers away. The British will be unable to defend against it. No interceptor can catch a rocket travelling at 5,000 kilometers per hour. Von Braun's expression is complex. Pride in the engineering achievement mixed with awareness of the weapon's purpose. The rocket works perfectly in theory, he responds. Whether it works in practice, we'll know in 30 minutes. The countdown proceeds. At 0, the A4's engine ignites, a controlled explosion generating 25 tons of thrust. The rocket lifts slowly, then accelerates rapidly, climbing vertically into the sky. Trajectory nominal, reports the tracking station. Altitude 1,000 meters, 5,000 meters, 10,000 meters. Engine cutoff at 85 kilometers altitude. The rocket has entered space. The A4 arcs over the Baltic Sea, reaching a peak altitude of 85 kilometers, the edge of space, before descending toward its target zone 190 kilometers downrange. Impact is recorded precisely on target. Perfect, Dornberger breathes. Absolutely perfect. We've just changed warfare forever. The celebration is immediate. Engineers embrace. Champagne appears. Von Braun is hoisted onto shoulders. This is the moment they've worked toward for a decade. Proof that liquid-fueled rockets can deliver payloads across hundreds of kilometers with unprecedented speed and accuracy. But Dornberger's mind is already calculating military implications. A4 rocket specifications. Range, 320 kilometers, 200 miles. Speed, 5,000 kilometers per hour at impact, Mach 4. Warhead, 1,000 kilograms high explosive. Accuracy, plus or minus 4 kilometers from target, best case. Launch preparation, 6 to 8 hours. Cost per rocket, 100,000 Reichsmarks. Production timeline? Dornberger asks von Braun. We can begin mass production by early 1944 if we receive priority for resources. We'll need factories, specialized equipment, thousands of workers. The rocket is complex, over 20,000 components, each requiring precision manufacturing. How many rockets can we build? With maximum effort? Perhaps 900 per month by mid-1944. That's 10,800 rockets per year, enough to sustain a campaign against London and other targets. Dornberger performs quick calculations. 900 rockets per month, each carrying a 1,000 kilogram warhead. That's 900 tons of explosives delivered to London monthly. For comparison, a single RAF 1000 bomber raid delivers 3,000 tons in one night. Our entire monthly rocket production equals 1/3 of a single Allied bombing raid. Von Braun catches the implication. You're saying the rocket isn't cost-effective as a weapon? I'm saying the arithmetic is challenging, but the rocket has advantages no bomber has. It's unstoppable. No fighter can intercept it. No anti-aircraft gun can shoot it down. It strikes without warning, at 5 times the speed of sound. The psychological impact will be enormous. What Dornberger doesn't yet know, Germany will spend over 2 billion Reichsmarks developing and producing the V-2 rocket. For that same investment, Germany could have produced 24,000 fighter aircraft, enough to potentially regain air superiority over Europe. The V-2 will kill approximately 2,700 British civilians and 7,000 forced labourers who died building it. The 24,000 fighters that weren't built could have changed the war's outcome. The rocket works brilliantly, but it solves the wrong problem. May 1943, Berlin, Ministry of Armaments. Albert Speer, Reich Minister of Armaments and War Production, reviews the growing list of German Wunderwaffen, wonder weapons, in development. Current wonder weapons programs. 1. Me-262 jet fighter. Status: prototypes flying, production delayed by Hitler's fighter-bomber conversion order. Cost: 1.2 billion RM. Development plus production. Expected impact: air superiority. Actual timeline: operational 1945, 18 months late. 2. V-2 rocket, A4. Status: successful test, beginning production. Cost: 2 billion RM, total program. Expected impact: devastate London, break British morale. Actual timeline: operational September 1944. 3. V-1 flying bomb. Status: development complete, production beginning. Cost: 500 million RM. Expected impact: cheaper alternative to V-2, mass production possible. Actual timeline: operational June 1944. 4. Type 21 U-boat. Status: revolutionary submarine design in development. Cost: 800 million RM. Expected impact: restore German submarine warfare dominance. Actual timeline: operational March 1945, too late. 5. Panther and Tiger tanks. Status: production ongoing but slow. Cost: enormous resource consumption. Expected impact: superior armour on Eastern Front. Actual problem: mechanical unreliability, production bottlenecks. 6. V-3 supergun. Status: development ongoing. Cost: 300 million RM. Expected impact: shell London from France. Actual result: destroyed by RAF before operational. Speer calculates the total investment, 5.8 billion Reichsmarks allocated to wonder weapons. For context, Germany's total military budget for 1943 is 70 billion RM, meaning over 8% of military spending goes to advanced weapons that mostly won't be ready until the war is effectively lost. He drafts a memo to Hitler, carefully worded to avoid angering the Führer. Mein Führer, our wonder weapons programs represent extraordinary technological achievements. However, I must present concerning arithmetic. V-2 program cost: 2 billion RM. Alternative: 24,000 conventional fighters. Current fighter production: 15,000 per year. V-2 equivalent: additional 160% fighter production. The question: will 900 V-2 rockets per month have greater military impact than 2,000 additional fighters per month? I believe the answer is no. Fighters defend our cities, protect our armies, contest air superiority. Rockets are terror weapons with limited military effect. Recommendation: redirect resources from wonder weapons to proven systems we can mass produce, now. Speer never sends the memo. He knows Hitler's likely response: rage, accusations of defeatism, possibly dismissal or worse. Hitler is emotionally invested in wonder weapons. They represent Germany's technological superiority, the secret weapons that will reverse the war's momentum. Suggesting cancellation of wonder weapons to build conventional aircraft is logical. But logic has ceased to drive German strategy. Instead, Germany will pour resources into weapons that arrive too late, cost too much, and solve problems that don't determine the war's outcome. June 1944, D-Day +1, Normandy, France. General Erwin Rommel stands in a concrete bunker overlooking Omaha Beach, watching Allied supplies pour ashore. Thousands of vehicles, tens of thousands of troops, mountains of equipment, an unstoppable tide of material superiority. Where are the wonder weapons? Rommel asks bitterly. For 2 years we've been told the Me-262 will restore air superiority. Where is it? We've been promised the V-weapons will devastate London and break British morale. Where are they? We were assured new supertanks and submarines would turn the tide. Instead, I watched the Allies land 150,000 men while our Luftwaffe is nowhere to be seen. His aide, Major Hans Lattmann, responds carefully. Herr Feldmarschall, the Me-262 is in production. The V-1 launches begin this week. The new Type 21 U-boats are being built. In production, being built! Rommel's frustration explodes. The invasion is happening now. We need weapons now. Not next month, not next year, now. The Führer believes the wonder weapons will. The Führer believes in miracles, Rommel interrupts. I believe in arithmetic. Look at that beach. The Allies have absolute air superiority. Why? Because while we develop jet fighters that aren't ready, they built 50,000 conventional fighters that are ready. While we designed revolutionary submarines, they built 10,000 conventional cargo ships. While we perfected super heavy tanks, they mass-produced adequate tanks in overwhelming numbers. Rommel walks to the observation slit, staring at the Allied armada offshore. We've spent 3 years chasing technological perfection, while the enemy pursued productive adequacy. Guess which strategy works in total war? June 13, 1944. First V-1 attack. At 0400 hours, 10 V-1 flying bombs launch from sites in France, targeting London. The Vergeltungswaffe 1, Vengeance Weapon 1, is Germany's answer to Allied bombing, a cheap, mass-producible cruise missile. V-1 flying bomb specifications. Length 25 feet. Range 150 miles. Speed 400 miles per hour. Warhead 1,870 pounds of high explosive. Guidance: autopilot, gyroscope and compass. Cost 5,000 RM, 1/20th the cost of a V-2. The V-1 is essentially a pilotless aircraft powered by a pulse jet engine. Simple, cheap, effective. Exactly what a resource-constrained nation should be producing. 4 V-1s reach London. One explodes in a residential area in Bethnal Green, killing 6 people and destroying 17 homes. The others land in open areas or are shot down by anti-aircraft fire. British response is immediate, within 24 hours. UK air defence adjustments. Fighter patrols intensified over English Channel. Anti-aircraft guns repositioned along V-1 flight paths. Barrage balloons deployed at optimal altitudes. Observer network activated to provide early warning. The V-1 flies at 400 miles per hour. Fast, but not impossibly fast. RAF fighters, Spitfire 14, Tempest 5, Meteor jets, can catch and destroy V-1s in flight. Anti-aircraft guns can track and shoot them down. Barrage balloon cables can snag their wings. Within weeks, British defences destroy 80% of V-1s before they reach London. Over the V-1 campaign, June 1944, March 1945, 9,251 V-1s launched at England. 7,488 detected by British defences, 3,957 destroyed by fighters, anti-aircraft or balloons, 2,419 reached London, 6,184 British civilians killed. For comparison, a single RAF raid on Dresden, February 1945, kills approximately 25,000 German civilians in one night, 4 times the total V-1 death toll across 9 months. Cost-benefit analysis. V-1 program. Total cost 500 million RM. Alternative: 60,000 conventional fighters at 8,300 RM each. German fighter production, 1944, 34,000 aircraft. V-1 equivalent, plus 177% fighter production. The question: would 60,000 additional fighters have greater military impact than 9,251 V-1 flying bombs that killed 6,184 civilians but had negligible strategic effect? The answer is obvious to everyone except Hitler. September 8, 1944. First V-2 attack. At 1,833 hours, a V-2 rocket launched from The Hague, Netherlands, impacts Chiswick, London. The explosion kills 3 people and injures 17. Unlike the V-1, which gives warning through its distinctive pulse jet engine sound, the V-2 provides no warning. It travels at 3,500 miles per hour, Mach 5, faster than sound. Victims hear the explosion before they hear the approaching rocket. There is no defense against the V-2, declares Joseph Goebbels in a radio broadcast. This weapon strikes without warning, without mercy. It is unstoppable. London will be reduced to rubble. British morale will break. The wonder weapons will win the war. The reality is different. Over the V-2 campaign, September 1944 to March 1945. 3,172 V-2 rockets launched. 1,358 targeted London. 517 reached target. 1,814 targeted Antwerp and other cities. 2,754 British civilians killed, London. 7,000 plus forced labourers died building V-2s in underground factories. V-2 accuracy problem. The V-2's guidance system is primitive, gyroscopes and an accelerometer to cut off the engine at the right velocity. The rocket is aimed in the general direction of the target, accelerates to 3,500 miles per hour, then falls on whatever happens to be below its impact point. Average accuracy, plus or minus 4 kilometers from aim point. This means a V-2 aimed at Tower Bridge might land anywhere in a 50 square kilometer area. It's not a precision weapon. It's a 1-ton warhead delivered randomly to Greater London. Strategic effectiveness. Winston Churchill describes the V-2's impact in his memoirs. The V-2 attacks were unpleasant and caused casualties, but they did not affect war production, military operations, or civilian morale significantly. They were spectacular, but strategically irrelevant. British morale does not break. War production continues unimpeded. Military operations proceed on schedule. The V-2 is a terror weapon without strategic value. The critical arithmetic, V-2. Total program cost, 2 billion RM. Total V-2s produced, 3,172. Cost per V-2, 630,000 RM. For comparison, Messerschmitt Bf-109 fighter, 50,000 RM. V-2 equivalent cost, 12.6 fighters. Alternative if 2 billion RM spent on fighters instead, 40,000 additional Bf-109s or 24,000 Me-262 jet fighters. German 1944 fighter production, 34,000. V-2 equivalent, plus 118% fighter production. The counterfactual, if Germany had spent the V-2 budget on fighters, they would have had 74,000 fighters in 1944 instead of 34,000. Would doubling fighter production have changed the war? Possibly. Would 3,172 V-2 rockets change the war? History says no. December 1944. Ardennes offensive, Battle of the Bulge. Germany launches its last major offensive, a desperate attempt to split Allied forces and recapture the port of Antwerp. The operation requires fuel, and more fuel for the panzers to reach their objectives. The offensive begins December 16th, with 410,000 German troops and 1,400 tanks. Initial success. Surprise achieved, American lines penetrated, confusion in Allied ranks. But by December 23rd, the offensive stalls. Why? Fuel shortage. Lieutenant Colonel Joachim Peiper, leading a Panzer spearhead, radios desperately. We're 15 kilometers from the Meuse River. We can break through, but we have no fuel. Send fuel. No fuel arrives. Peiper's panzers sit immobilized. American forces counterattack. The offensive collapses. After the battle, captured German officers provide revealing testimony. We were promised fuel from captured American depots, explains one panzer commander. But American resistance was stronger than expected. We never captured the fuel. Our tanks became pillboxes. We had the most advanced armour in the world. Tiger IIs, Panthers, completely immobilized because we lacked the most basic resource, fuel. The strategic irony? Germany's advanced tanks, wonders of engineering with superior armour and firepower, failed not from American weapons, but from German resource misallocation. The fuel arithmetic. V-2 program, September to December 1944. Rockets launched, 1,200. Fuel consumed, 4,800 tons alcohol, 5,400 tons liquid oxygen. Ardennes offensive, fuel shortage. Required for success, 5 million gallons, 19,000 tons. Actually available, 3 million gallons, 11,400 tons. Shortfall, 7,600 tons. The V-2 program consumed enough fuel to nearly cover the Ardennes shortfall. If Germany had cancelled V-2 operations for 3 months and diverted that fuel to the offensive, would it have succeeded? Perhaps not. But the V-2s definitely didn't help win the war, while adequate fuel might have. January 1945. The Me-262 finally arrives. 18 months after Hitler ordered conversion to fighter bomber role, the Me-262 finally enters large-scale service. As a fighter, the role it was designed for. Hitler has finally relented on the bomber conversion, allowing the Me-262 to operate as an interceptor. By January 1945, Germany produces 564 Me-262s, but chronic problems limit effectiveness. Me-262 operational problems. 1. Engine reliability. UMO 004 turbojets last only 10 to 25 hours before failure. Jet engine technology was primitive in 1945. Constant replacements required. 2. Fuel scarcity. Me-262 consumes 300 gallons per hour. Germany's fuel production has been devastated by Allied bombing. Jet fuel is even scarcer than aviation gasoline. 3. Pilot training. Me-262 requires extensive training. High-speed handling is completely different from propeller aircraft. Germany lacks time and fuel for proper training. 4. Airfield vulnerability. Me-262s must take off and land at high speed, requiring long runways. Allied fighters patrol known Me-262 bases, attacking during vulnerable takeoff-landing phases. 5. Production bottlenecks. Despite 1,430 Me-262s produced by war's end, only 200 to 300 were operational simultaneously. The rest sat grounded for lack of fuel, spare engines, or trained pilots. Combat effectiveness. Me-262 pilots claim approximately 542 Allied aircraft destroyed. Loss: 100 Me-262s in combat. Kill ratio: 5.4 to 1, excellent, but strategic impact: negligible. Allied bombing continues unabated. German cities burn. Allied fighters maintain air superiority. Why? Because 200 Me-262s cannot contest air superiority when the Allies have 50,000 conventional fighters. The technological advantage is real, but the numerical disadvantage is overwhelming. The counterfactual. If the Me-262 had entered service in mid-1943, before Hitler's conversion order, instead of mid-1945, 18 additional months of production, 8,000 plus aircraft possible. 18 months of pilot training, experienced jet pilots available. 18 months before fuel crisis, adequate fuel stocks remaining. Strategic impact, potentially devastating to Allied bomber campaigns. But history doesn't deal in counterfactuals. The Me-262 arrived too late, in too few numbers, with insufficient support. A revolutionary aircraft squandered by poor strategic decisions. March 1945, Atlantic Ocean. Kapitän-Leutnant Adalbert Schnee commands U-2511, one of the first operational Type 21 U-boats, Germany's revolutionary new submarine design. The Type 21 represents a genuine technological leap, addressing every weakness that made conventional U-boats vulnerable to Allied countermeasures. Type 21 U-boat revolutionary features. Underwater speed, 17.2 knots submerged, versus 7.6 knots for Type 7. Fast enough to outrun most destroyers underwater. Can pursue convoys while submerged. Can escape depth charge attacks through speed. Battery capacity. Triple the batteries of conventional U-boats. Can remain submerged for 11 days. Eliminates need to surface for recharging, vulnerable moment. Schnorkel allows battery charging at periscope depth. Sonar systems. Advanced passive sonar array. Can detect ships at 50 plus kilometers. Target tracking without raising periscope. Eliminates visual detection risk. Hydraulic torpedo loading. Reload time, 12 minutes, versus 30 plus minutes manual loading. Can fire full salvo, reload, fire again before destroyers respond. 23 torpedoes carried versus 14 in Type 7. Silent running. Noise reduction engineering throughout. Nearly undetectable to Allied sonar at slow speeds. Can approach convoys without being heard. Schnee takes U-2511 on patrol in late April 1945. The submarine performs flawlessly. He locates a British convoy, approaches undetected, achieves perfect firing position. He could sink multiple ships with near impunity. "Prepare to fire," Schnee orders. His torpedo officer readies the attack. Then the radio crackles. "All U-boats cease offensive operations immediately. Return to base. Germany surrenders May 7th. Schnee never fires. He surfaces U-2511, makes best speed to Norway, and surrenders on May 4th, 1945. The Type 21, the submarine that could have changed the Battle of the Atlantic, enters service in March 1945, weeks before Germany's surrender. Only 2 Type 21 boats conduct war patrols. Neither fires a shot. The Type 21 development timeline. September 1943. Design finalized. Planned. Revolutionary construction method using prefabricated sections. Advantage. Reduces construction time from 12 months to 3 months per submarine. Goal. Produce 30 Type 21 per month by mid-1944. Reality. Allied bombing. Frequent raids on construction facilities delay production. Component shortages. Advanced equipment requires precision manufacturing under bombardment. Training delays. Revolutionary submarine requires extensive crew training. Quality control problems. Rushed production creates defects requiring repairs. Production results. Type 21 ordered, 118 boats. Completed by war's end, 118 boats. Actually operational, 2 boats. Combat patrols, 2 patrols. Ships sunk, 0. Allied assessment. Admiral Karl Dönitz, commander of German Navy. "If we had had the Type 21 2 years earlier, we would have won the Battle of the Atlantic. This submarine made obsolete every countermeasure the Allies developed. We could have strangled British supply lines." Admiral Ernest King, US Chief of Naval Operations, post-war assessment. Dönitz is right. The Type 21 was the most formidable submarine of the war. If Germany had deployed 100 Type 21s in 1943, the Battle of the Atlantic outcome could have been different. Fortunately for us, they developed it too late. The strategic failure. The Type 21 worked. It was brilliant engineering. It solved genuine problems. But it arrived after Germany had already lost the Battle of the Atlantic, May 1943, and after the invasion of France, June 1944, eliminated the existential threat to Britain. The Type 21 answered a question that no longer mattered. The numbers that tell the story. April 1945. Albert Speer presents Adolf Hitler with the final production statistics for Germany's wonder weapons programs. The meeting is held in the Führer bunker beneath Berlin as Soviet artillery pounds the city above. Wonder weapons. Final accounting. V-1 flying bomb. Total produced 30,000. Launched at Britain 9,251. Reached target 2,419. British civilians killed 6,184. Cost 500 million RM. Alternative 60,000 conventional fighters. V-2 rocket. Total produced 3,172. Launched at Britain 1,358. Reached London 517. British civilians killed 2,754. Workers died building them 7,000 plus. Cost 2 billion RM. Alternative 24,000 Me-262 jets or 40,000 conventional fighters. Me-262 jet fighter. Total produced 1,430. Operationally deployed 200 to 300 simultaneously. Allied aircraft destroyed 542. Lost in combat 100. Delayed by Hitler's conversion order 18 months. Cost 1.2 billion RM development plus production. Entered service too late for strategic impact. Type 21 U-boat. Total produced 118. Operational 2. War patrols 2. Enemy ships sunk 0. Cost 800 million RM. Entered service 2 weeks before surrender. Panther Tiger tanks. Panther produced 6,000. Tiger 1 produced 1,347. Tiger 2 produced 489. Mechanical reliability, poor, frequent breakdowns. Fuel consumption, enormous. Strategic impact, limited by mobility problems and Allied air superiority. Total wonder weapons, cost, 5.5 billion RM. Alternative conventional weapons, for same cost, 110,000 Bf-109 fighters at 50,000 RM each, or 66,000 Bf-109s plus 30,000 Panzer IVs, or 45,000 Me-262 jets at 120,000 RM each if mass-produced. Actual German 1944 production, all aircraft, 39,807. Fighters, 34,164. Tanks, assault guns, 27,300. If wonder weapons budget spent on conventional weapons, fighters, 34,164 plus 110,000 equals 144,164, 362% increase, or balanced, 80,000 fighters plus 35,000 tanks. Hitler stares at the numbers. His hands tremble, partly from Parkinson's disease, partly from rage. These statistics are defeatist, Hitler declares. They don't account for the terror effect. The V-weapons broke British morale. British morale never broke, Speer interrupts quietly. V-weapons killed 9,000 civilians total. We lost 500,000 German civilians to Allied bombing. The British continued fighting. The terror effect was negligible. The Me-262 dominated the skies. The Me-262 shot down 542 Allied aircraft, Speer continues. Admirable, but the Allies lost 95,000 aircraft during the war and replaced them all. 542 kills cannot contest air superiority against an enemy producing 300,000 aircraft. The Type 21 submarine would have, Speer emphasizes, but didn't. It entered service 2 weeks before surrender. Perfect technology deployed too late is worthless technology. Hitler's rage finally explodes. You dare tell me our wonder weapons failed? These weapons represented German technological superiority. They were the secret weapons that diverted resources from weapons we needed now to weapons that arrived later, Speer states bluntly. The Soviets didn't defeat us with wonder weapons. They defeated us with 60,000 T-34 tanks, adequate, mass-produced, available when needed. The Americans didn't defeat us with wonder weapons. They defeated us with 100,000 conventional fighters and 50,000 Sherman tanks. Quantity defeated quality. Production defeated innovation. And we chose innovation. Get out, Hitler says coldly. Speer leaves. He knows the argument is futile. Hitler cannot accept that Germany's technological sophistication became a strategic liability, that pursuing perfect weapons delayed deployment of adequate weapons, that innovation without production is militarily worthless. 3 weeks later, Hitler commits suicide. The 1,000-year Reich ends after 12 years. Germany's wonder weapons, marvels of engineering, sit scattered across the ruins. Jet fighters without fuel, submarines without crews, rockets that killed more workers building them than enemies receiving them. Technological superiority without strategic wisdom is just expensive failure. Section 4. The Allies' Response. Boring Success. June 1944. Somewhere over Normandy, Lieutenant James Howard pilots a P-47 Thunderbolt over the D-Day beaches. His aircraft is not a wonder weapon. It's not revolutionary. It represents no technological breakthrough. The P-47 is adequate. Speed, 433 miles per hour, slower than Me-262 by 100 plus miles per hour. Armament, 8.50 caliber guns, less powerful than Me-262's 30mm cannons. Technology, conventional piston engine. Me-262 has jets. But Lieutenant Howard's P-47 is here, over Normandy, supporting the invasion. It works. It's fueled. It's maintained. It flies. Meanwhile, somewhere in Germany, an Me-262 sits on a runway, grounded for lack of fuel. Technologically superior, strategically irrelevant, The Allied production philosophy. While Germany pursued wonder weapons, the Allies pursued mass production of good enough weapons. P-47 Thunderbolt fighter. Revolutionary? No. Adequate? Yes. Mass-produced? 15,683 aircraft. Available when needed? Yes. Strategic impact? Decisive. Sherman tank. Revolutionary? No. Mediocre armor, adequate gun. Adequate? Yes. Mass-produced? 49,234 tanks. Available when needed? Yes. Strategic impact? Overwhelming. Liberty ship. Revolutionary? No. Slow, basic cargo ship. Adequate? Yes. Mass-produced? 2,710 ships. Available when needed? Yes. Strategic impact? One logistics war. B-17 B-24 bombers. Revolutionary? No. Adequate? Yes. Mass-produced? 31,745 aircraft. Available when needed? Yes. Strategic impact? Devastated German industry. The Allied philosophy. Build adequate weapons in overwhelming quantities. Deploy them now. Let quantity compensate for individual quality. Comparative production, 1944. Germany. All aircraft, 39,807. Fighters, 34,164. Tanks, 27,300. Focus, quality, innovation, advanced technology. United States alone. All aircraft, 96,318. Fighters, 38,873. Tanks, 17,565. Plus, Britain, Soviet Union production. Focus, quantity, reliability, rapid production. Combined Allied production, 1944. Aircraft, 167,654, 4.2 times German production. Tanks, 51,000, 1.9 times German production. Ships, overwhelming Allied advantage. Germany cannot win a production war against this disparity. No amount of technological sophistication compensates for being outnumbered 4-1 in aircraft and 2-1 in tanks. The Soviet approach, brutal simplicity. December 1944, Eastern Front. Soviet T-34-85 tanks advance through Poland. The T-34 is not sophisticated. T-34-85 specifications. Armor, adequate, not superior. Gun, 85 mm, adequate, not exceptional. Reliability, good, simple design, easy maintenance. Production, 48,950 built, 1944 to 1945. Cost, cheap, simplified manufacturing. Against it, German Panther tanks, technologically superior in every category. Panther specifications. Armor, superior, better protection. Gun, 75 mm long-barreled, superior penetration. Optics, excellent, better than T-34. Fire control, superior. Overall quality, significantly better than T-34. But the arithmetic favours the Soviets. T-34 versus Panther. Production. T-34 production, 1944, 48,950. Panther production, 1944, 6,000. Ratio, 8-1 in Soviet favour. A Panther might be worth 3 T-34s in combat, arguably. But the Soviets have 8 T-34s for every Panther. And the T-34 has one critical advantage the Panther lacks. It works. Panthers suffer from final drive failures, frequent. Engine fires, common. Transmission breakdowns, endemic. Fuel consumption, enormous. Meanwhile, T-34s are simple, reliable, and maintainable. They break down less. When they do break, field repairs are simple. They consume less fuel. They're easier to train crews for. Soviet General Georgy Zhukov explains the philosophy. The German Panther is a magnificent tank. The T-34 is an adequate tank. But I can field 8 T-34s for every Panther. I will win through numbers, not individual excellence. This is mathematics, not emotion. The Germans cannot compete with this arithmetic. They pursue quality. The Soviets pursue quantity. In total war, quantity wins. May 1945, Flensburg, Germany. Grand Admiral Karl Dönitz, who succeeded Hitler as head of state for the brief final days of the Third Reich, signs Germany's unconditional surrender. Among the documents he reviews before surrendering, final accounting of Germany's wonder weapons programs. Dönitz, a practical naval officer, understands the mathematics of strategic failure. He writes in his diary, "We lost the war in 1942-1943 when we lost the production race. By 1944, no amount of technological innovation could compensate for the material disparity. Our wonder weapons were marvels of engineering deployed into a lost cause. The V-2 killed 2,700 British civilians. For the same resources, we could have built 40,000 fighters. Would 40,000 additional fighters have changed the war? Possibly. Did 3,172 V-2 rockets change the war? Demonstrably not. We chose innovation over production. The Allies chose production over innovation. They were correct. We were wrong. It's that simple." Allied Intelligence Assessment, June 1945. Combined Intelligence Objectives Subcommittee Report. British and American intelligence officers compile comprehensive assessment of captured German wonder weapons. Their conclusions are startling and sobering. V-2 Rocket Assessment. The V-2 represents extraordinary engineering achievement. Liquid-fueled rocket capable of reaching space, travelling at Mach 5, delivering 1-ton warhead across 200 miles with no possibility of interception. However, strategic value was negligible. 3,172 rockets launched killed 2,754 civilians, less than single RAF raid on Dresden. No military targets significantly damaged. British war production unaffected. Morale impact minimal. Cost: 2 billion Reichsmarks, enough to produce 40,000 fighters or 24,000 Me-262 jets. Recommendation: pursue rocket technology for post-war applications, but recognise it as strategically an effective weapon in World War II context. Me-262 jet fighter assessment. The Me-262 is genuinely revolutionary. First operational jet fighter, 100 plus miles per hour faster than any Allied fighter, devastating armament. German engineering at its finest. However, strategic impact minimal due to late deployment, fuel shortages, inadequate pilot training, and overwhelming Allied numerical superiority. 200 operational simultaneously cannot contest air superiority against 50,000 plus Allied fighters. Critical failure: Hitler's 18-month delay converting to fighter-bomber role. If Me-262 had deployed in 1943 instead of 1945, strategic impact could have been decisive. Recommendation: immediately pursue jet technology. Me-262 proves jets a future of aviation, but also proves that technological advantage without adequate numbers, fuel, and training is strategically worthless. Type 21 U-boat assessment. The Type 21 is the most advanced submarine of the war. Underwater speed of 17 knots makes it nearly uncatchable. Extended submerged endurance eliminates vulnerability to air attack. Advanced sonar and fire control make it deadly. However, only 2 boats conducted war patrols, neither fired shots. Entered service 2 weeks before German surrender. If deployed 2 years earlier with adequate numbers, could have renewed Battle of the Atlantic and potentially starved Britain. Deployed in 1945, strategically irrelevant. Recommendation: adopt Type 21 technology for post-war submarine development, but learn lesson. Revolutionary weapons must deploy in time to affect war outcome. Overall assessment. German wonder weapons program demonstrates danger of pursuing technological perfection at expense of timely deployment. Germany chose to develop war-winning weapons that arrived after the war was already lost. Allied approach, mass production of adequate weapons, proved superior strategy. Individual Allied weapons were often inferior to German equivalents, but Allied weapons were available in overwhelming quantities when needed. Key lesson: in total war, production capacity matters more than technological sophistication. Perfect weapon deployed too late is militarily worthless. Adequate weapon deployed in overwhelming numbers wins wars. Operation Paperclip, harvesting German technology. August 1945, United States. The US military initiates Operation Paperclip, systematic recruitment of German scientists and engineers, particularly those involved in wonder weapons programs. Target recruits: Werner von Braun and V-2 rocket team, 120 scientists. Gay U-62 jet engine designers. Barrett Type 21 submarine engineers. Barrett advanced weapons researchers. The Americans recognize German wonder weapons failed strategically in World War II, but the technology has immense post-war potential. Werner von Braun recruitment. Von Braun and his team surrender to Americans, deliberately avoiding Soviet capture. US interrogators are impressed by V-2 documentation and expertise. The V-2 didn't win the war, notes one American officer, but it proves that space travel is possible. This man and his team are worth their weight in gold for post-war rocket development. Von Braun is offered American citizenship and position leading US rocket program. He accepts immediately. His entire team follows. By 1960, von Braun leads NASA's Saturn V rocket program, directly applying V-2 technology to put Americans on the moon. The V-2 failed as a weapon, but it succeeded as proof of concept for space exploration. Jet engine technology. British and Americans dismantle Me-262s and UMO-004 engines, studying every component. The technology proves invaluable. Homogeneous F-86 Saberjet, 1949, incorporates lessons from Me-262. British jet fighters adopt swept-wing designs from German research. Soviet MiG-15, 1947, based partly on captured German jets and engines. The Me-262 arrives too late to save Germany, but it defines post-war fighter aviation for decades. Submarine technology. Type 21 design influences Cold War submarine development. US submarines adopt streamlined hulls, increased battery capacity. Soviet submarines copy Type 21 design almost exactly. Modern submarines still use principles pioneered by Type 21. The Type 21 fights no battles, but it revolutionizes submarine warfare for the next 50 years. Section 6. The lessons Germany refused to learn. The strategic autopsy. Nuremberg trials. Albert Speer testifies about German war production. His testimony provides devastating critique of wonder weapons strategy. Prosecutor. Herr Speer, you were Reich Minister of Armaments. You controlled German war production. Why did Germany lose the production war? Speer. We made fundamental strategic errors. We prioritized innovation over production. We pursued technological perfection instead of numerical adequacy. We developed weapons for the war we wished to fight, instead of the war we were actually fighting. Prosecutor. Explain the V-2 program specifically. Speer. The V-2 consumed resources equivalent to 40,000 fighters. Those fighters could have contested Allied air superiority, the critical problem that doomed Germany. Instead, we built 3,172 rockets that killed fewer people than a single bombing raid. It was strategically irrational. Prosecutor. Why did Hitler insist on wonder weapons despite their inefficiency? Speer. Hitler believed in technological salvation. He thought German engineering superiority would produce weapons so advanced they would negate Allied material superiority. This was fantasy. No weapon is so advanced it compensates for being outnumbered 10-1. Prosecutor. Could Germany have won with different production priorities? Speer. Perhaps not won, but prolonged the war significantly. If we'd built 100,000 conventional fighters instead of wonder weapons, Allied bombing would have been far more costly. If we'd built 50,000 simple, reliable tanks instead of complex Panthers and Tigers, our armies would have been more mobile. If we'd focused on defense instead of vengeance weapons, we might have made invasion impossibly expensive. Why didn't you advise Hitler to cancel wonder weapons? I tried. Multiple times, Hitler refused to listen. Wonder weapons represented his vision of German superiority. Suggesting we abandon them for conventional weapons was like suggesting Germany was not exceptional. Hitler could not accept this psychologically. The mathematics of strategic failure. Post-war analysts quantify the wonder weapons miscalculation. Scenario 1. Historical reality. Wonder weapons priority. German 1944 production. Fighters, 34,164. V-1, V-2 combined, 33,000 units. Wonder weapons cost, 5.5 billion Reigem. Allied response. Adequate defences against V-weapons, 80% intercept rate. Divisive air superiority maintained. Strategic bombing continues unabated. Result: Germany loses air war, cities devastated, war lost, May 1945. Scenario 2. Conventional weapons priority, alternative history. If 5.5 billion Reigem spent on conventional fighters instead, subfighters, 34,164 plus 110,000 equals 144,164. Greeting. No V-weapons produced. No delayed Me-262 deployment. Enters service 1943. Allied response. Must contest German air superiority with much higher losses. Site. Strategic bombing becomes prohibitively expensive. Collaborated planning delayed due to Luftwaffe threat. Hypothetical result. War prolonged 12 to 18 months at minimum. Allied victory still likely, but far more costly. Join potential negotiated peace if Allied casualties too high. The critical question. Could 110,000 additional fighters have changed the war outcome? Arguments for. Threatens triple Luftwaffe strength over Britain and France. Comrades, Allied bombing losses would increase 5 to 10 times. Strategic bombing campaign might become unsustainable. Moot, D-Day invasion far more risky with stronger Luftwaffe. Arguments against. Allied production still massively superior. Eventually overwhelm even tripled Luftwaffe through attrition. Atomic bomb would end war regardless. August 1945. Soviet advance unstoppable on Eastern Front. Consensus assessment. 110,000 additional fighters would not have won the war for Germany. Allied material superiority was too overwhelming. But it would have made Allied victory far more expensive and time-consuming. Germany chose spectacular failure, wonder weapons, over stubborn resistance, conventional weapons. This was strategically irrational. The psychological trap, 1950s. Historians interview surviving German officers and officials. Common themes emerge about why Germany pursued wonder weapons despite poor cost-benefit. General Heinz Guderian, panzer commander. Hitler was obsessed with retaliation. The V-weapons were not military weapons. They were psychological weapons aimed at German morale as much as British. Hitler needed to show Germans that we were striking back, that we possessed secret weapons, that ultimate victory was possible. The V-weapons served this narrative, even if they didn't serve military strategy. General Adolf Galland, Luftwaffe fighter commander. The Me-262 delay was criminal. We had air superiority's answer, a fighter no Allied aircraft could catch, and Hitler ordered it converted to a bomber because he was obsessed with offence. This cost us 18 months. By the time the Me-262 deployed properly, we lacked fuel, pilots and time. It was technological brilliance wasted by strategic stupidity. Albert Speer. Hitler believed in German exceptionalism. He could not accept that we would lose through simple arithmetic, that the Allies would outproduce us in conventional weapons. He needed to believe that German technological genius would create revolutionary weapons that would reverse the material balance. This psychological need drove wonder weapons policy even when the numbers clearly showed it was irrational. Dr. Werner Heisenberg, nuclear physicist. I was involved in Germany's atomic bomb program, another wonder weapon that never materialized. Hitler would periodically inquire about atomic weapons, asking when they would be ready. He saw them as war-winning technology. But atomic weapons required years of development and enormous resources. We couldn't deliver them in time. Wonder weapons operated on fantasy timelines, not reality. The pattern. Wonder weapons policy reflected psychological needs, not strategic calculation. Commissioners, to retaliate, V weapons for vengeance. Need to believe in German superiority, advanced technology. Need to maintain hope of victory, secret weapons will turn tide. Inability to accept arithmetic, production matters more than quality. These psychological factors overrode rational cost-benefit analysis. Germany pursued weapons that made psychological sense, but strategic nonsense. Type continue to generate the final sections. Continue, 8:44 p.m. Section 7. The Modern Echo. Iraq War. US and British forces invade Iraq, expecting to encounter Saddam Hussein's weapons of mass destruction, chemical weapons, biological weapons, possibly nuclear weapons. Intelligence agencies warn of mobile biological labs, underground chemical facilities, advanced delivery systems. The invasion succeeds rapidly. Baghdad falls in 3 weeks. Coalition forces search for the WMDs that justified the invasion. They find nothing. No chemical weapons stockpiles, no biological weapons, no nuclear program. The weapons of mass destruction don't exist in meaningful quantities, but they do find something interesting. Evidence that Saddam Hussein's regime was obsessed with acquiring wonder weapons while neglecting conventional military readiness. Iraqi military priorities, 1990 to 2003. Investments made. WMD programs, chemical biological research. Supergun project, artillery piece to shell Israel from Iraq. Missile programs, extending Scud range. Nuclear weapons research, terminated by Israeli airstrike 1981. Prestige projects and palaces for regime. Investments not made. Modern tanks, most Iraqi armour, 1970s Soviet models. Air defence systems, antiquated by 2003. Precision weapons, limited smart munitions. Communications equipment, coalition easily jammed. Divisive training and readiness, troops poorly prepared. Result: Iraqi military collapses in 3 weeks, despite having 400,000 troops. The wonder weapons never materialise. The conventional forces prove inadequate against modern military. Historical parallel. Iraq 2003 equals Germany 1945. Obsessed with wonder weapons, neglected conventional military readiness. Wonder weapons failed to deter invasion. Conventional forces collapsed rapidly. Saddam Hussein learned nothing from Germany's strategic failure. The North Korean example, 2006, present. North Korea. North Korea develops nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles, the ultimate wonder weapons. The program consumes enormous resources. North Korean nuclear missile program costs. Estimated $1.1 to $3.2 billion per year. North Korean GDP, $40 billion, 2020. Program cost, 3 to 8% of GDP annually. Conventional military neglect. Most equipment, 1960s to 1970s vintage. Fuel shortages limit training. Spare parts scarce. Readiness questionable. The strategic logic. North Korea argues nuclear weapons deter US invasion. They're probably correct. Nuclear weapons change strategic calculus fundamentally. But the cost? Conventional military hollowed out. Economy devastated. Population impoverished. North Korea possesses wonder weapons while its society crumbles. The Germany parallel. Germany pursued wonder weapons while conventional forces deteriorated. North Korea pursues wonder weapons while conventional forces stagnate. Both prioritize technological prestige over military readiness. Difference. North Korea's wonder weapons actually work as deterrent. Germany's wonder weapons arrive too late and accomplish too little. But the cost-benefit remains questionable. Would North Korea be more secure with nuclear weapons plus hollowed conventional military plus collapsed economy? Barrett. Or no nuclear weapons plus robust conventional military plus functional economy? History suggests the latter, but North Korea chose the former. The modern US military, learning the lesson? IBID Budget Review. US military faces perennial debate. Should we invest in next-generation wonder weapons or maintain existing conventional capabilities? Emerging wonder weapons. Hypersonic missiles, $15+ billion program. MOBA generation fighters, $1 billion in development. Directed energy weapons, lasers for air defense. ARCT. Autonomous combat systems, AI-controlled drones. MOB space-based weapons, aiding electromagnetic railguns. Each program promises revolutionary capability. Each costs billions. Each diverts resources from conventional capabilities. The Germany question. Are we repeating Germany's mistake, pursuing technological marvels at expense of readiness? Arguments for wonder weapons. Peer competitors, China, Russia, developing similar systems. Technological advantage crucial in modern warfare. Revolutionary weapons can change strategic balance. US technological lead is key advantage, must maintain it. Arguments against. Conventional capabilities win actual wars. Readiness matters more than revolutionary technology. F-35 program, $1.7 trillion total cost, shows danger of over-investing in advanced systems. Wonder weapons often arrive late and over budget. The balanced view. US military learned from Germany's mistake, somewhat. Current approach. Pursue advanced technology but maintain conventional superiority. Don't sacrifice readiness for innovation. Enthusiast, ensure new weapons actually deploy in reasonable timeframe. Maintain your advantages, not just technological, but the temptation remains. Every generation of military planners faces the wonder weapon seduction. The promise that the next technological breakthrough will provide decisive advantage. Germany's experience warns, technological advantage without adequate numbers, timely deployment, and strategic wisdom is worthless. Section 8. The final accounting. What the wonder weapons actually accomplished. V-1 flying bomb. British civilians killed, 6,184. Strategic impact, minimal, no military targets affected. Psychological impact, moderate, Londoners disrupted but did not break. Cost-benefit, terrible, 60,000 fighters could have been built instead. V-2 rocket. Ambiguity, British civilians killed, 2,754. Workers died building them, 7,000 plus. Strategic impact, 0. Psychological impact, minimal. Cost-benefit, catastrophic, 40,000 fighters alternative. Post-war value, enormous, enabled space program. Me-262 jet fighter. Allied aircraft destroyed, 542. Strategic impact, negligible, too few, too late. Embarked. Technological impact, revolutionary, defined post-war aviation. Deployment delay, 18 months, Hitler's fault. Counterfactual, could have been decisive if deployed 1943. Type 21 U-boat, ship sunk, 0. Strategic impact, 0, arrived weeks before surrender. Technological impact, revolutionary, defined Cold War submarines. Deployment failure, catastrophic. Panther, Tiger tanks. Combat effectiveness, superior to Allied tanks individually. Embarked. Strategic impact, limited, unreliable, fuel-hungry, outnumbered. Cost-benefit, poor, simpler tanks in greater numbers more effective. Total wonder weapons, strategic impact, negligible to 0. Germany lost the war despite technological superiority, not because of it. The wonder weapons consumed resources that could have prolonged German resistance significantly if invested in conventional weapons. The counterfactual, what if Germany had chosen differently? Ultimate history scenario. January 1943, Albert Speer convinces Hitler to cancel wonder weapons programs and redirect resources to conventional weapons. Resources redirected. V-1, V-2 programs, 2.5 billion remain, 50,000 fighters. Me-262 early deployment, no conversion delay, 8,000 jets by 1944. Type 21 resources, 800 million remain, 16,000 U-boats, conventional Type 7. Simplified tank production, Panthers, Tigers, 20,000 additional Panzer IVs. German 1944 production, alternate. Fighters, 84,000 versus historical 34,164. Tanks, 47,000 versus historical 27,300. U-boats, full Atlantic campaign maintained. Allied response required. Must contest air superiority with much higher losses. Strategic bombing becomes extremely costly. D-Day invasion delayed or cancelled due to Luftwaffe threat. Barley of Atlantic renewed. Hypothetical outcome. Germany still loses. Allied material superiority too great. But war extended 18 to 24 months. Sixth, Allied casualties 3 to 5 times higher. Reaving, strategic bombing campaign, possibly unsustainable. Ottid, potential negotiated peace if political will collapses. The critical insight. Wonder weapons didn't lose the war. Germany was losing anyway. But wonder weapons ensured Germany lost faster and with less Allied cost. Germany's choice. Historical, spectacular failure, wonder weapons. Alternative, stubborn resistance, conventional weapons. Hitler chose spectacular failure. It was psychologically satisfying, but strategically disastrous. The lesson that echoes through history. 1945. Germany loses war despite technological superiority. Lesson. Production matters more than innovation. 1960s to 1970s. Vietnam War. US technological superiority fails against North Vietnamese persistence. Lesson. Technology doesn't guarantee victory. 1973. Yom Kippur War. Israeli technological advantage nearly overturned by Arab numerical superiority. Lesson. Numbers matter. 1991. Gulf War. US technological superiority devastates Iraqi forces. Lesson. Sometimes technology is decisive when properly deployed with adequate numbers. 2001 to 2021. Afghanistan. US technological superiority fails to defeat Taliban insurgency. Lesson. Technology alone insufficient for victory. The pattern. Technology provides advantages, but technology alone doesn't win wars. Wars are won by production capacity. Can you build enough? Logistics. Can you supply it? Disparity. Training. Can you use it effectively? Strategy. Are you using it to solve the right problems? Will. Do you have national commitment? Germany had brilliant technology, but failed at production, logistics, strategy, and eventually will. The wonder weapons were symptoms of strategic delusion, belief that technological genius could compensate for fundamental strategic disadvantages. The psychologist's view. Why smart people make dumb decisions. Dr. Daniel Kahneman, Nobel Prize, Behavioral Economics, analyzes German wonder weapon strategy. The wonder weapons program demonstrates classic cognitive biases. Optimism bias. Hitler believed wonder weapons would arrive in time to matter. They didn't. He systematically underestimated development timelines and overestimated deployment impact. Sunk cost fallacy. Once resources were invested in V-2, Me-262, etc., cancellation became psychologically impossible. We've already spent so much, we must continue. Availability heuristic. Recent technological successes, radar, jet engines, made future technological breakthroughs seem more probable than they were. Confirmation bias. Hitler sought information confirming wonder weapons would work, ignored evidence they wouldn't arrive in time. Narrative fallacy. Hitler needed a story where Germany wins through technological genius. This narrative felt true emotionally, even when arithmetic proved it false. These biases are universal. Modern militaries must guard against them constantly. The wonder weapon seduction never ends, only the weapons change. 2024. Deutsches Technikmuseum, Berlin. The German Museum of Technology houses an extensive World War II collection. In a dedicated hall titled Wunderwaffen, Innovation Without Victory, visitors encounter the physical remnants of Germany's wonder weapons program. Exhibit 1. The V-2 rocket. A full-scale V-2 stands vertically in the center of the hall, 46 feet tall, 12.5 tons, an engineering marvel that reached the edge of space in 1942. The placard reads, V-2 rocket A4, the world's first ballistic missile, speed 3,500 miles per hour, Mach 5, range 200 miles, first weapon to reach space, cost 2 billion Reichsmarks, British civilians killed 2,754, forced labourers died building them 7,000 plus, strategic impact 0, alternative investment 40,000 conventional fighters. The V-2 was a technological triumph and strategic catastrophe. It proved rockets could reach space, invaluable for post-war space programs. But as a weapon, it consumed resources equivalent to doubling Germany's fighter production while killing fewer people than a single bombing raid. Beside the V-2 stands a smaller display, a single Messerschmitt Bf-109 fighter, one of the 40,000 that could have been built with the V-2 budget. A school teacher leads a group of students through the exhibit. Which would have helped Germany more, she asks. One V-2 rocket or 12 fighters? A student responds, the fighters, obviously, but Hitler wanted revenge, not military effectiveness. Exactly, the teacher confirms. Emotion overruled logic. This is the danger of wonder weapons. They satisfy psychological needs while failing strategic needs. Exhibit 2. Messerschmitt Me 262. A pristine Me 262 sits on display, its sleek lines and twin jet engines still impressive 80 years later. It's painted in the colours of Jagdverband 44, Adolf Hitler's elite jet fighter unit that operated in the war's final months. The placard, Messerschmitt Me 262, world's first operational jet fighter. Speed, 540 miles per hour, 100 miles per hour faster than any Allied fighter. Armament, 4 30mm cannons. Total produced, 1,430. Operational simultaneously, 200 to 300 Allied aircraft destroyed. 542. German losses, 100. Kill ratio, 5.4 to 1. Strategic impact, minimal. Too few, too late. The Me 262 could have changed the air war if deployed in 1943 as a pure interceptor. Hitler's order to convert it to a fighter bomber delayed deployment by 18 months. When it finally entered service in 1945, Germany lacked fuel, trained pilots, and time. Revolutionary technology arrived after the war was already lost. Timeline display. July 1942. First test flight. Jet engines operational. April 1943. Hitler orders fighter-bomber conversion. November 1943. Conversion program delays production 18 months. July 1944. Fighter-bomber Me 262 finally operational, limited numbers. November 1944. Me 262 finally approved as pure fighter, Hitler relents. January 1945. Large-scale Me 262 fighter operations begin. May 1945. Germany surrenders. Counterfactual timeline display. July 1942. First test flight. January 1943. Production begins as interceptor, no Hitler interference. July 1943. 500 Me 262s operational. January 1944. 2,000 Me 262s operational. Allied bombing campaign, potentially unsustainable due to massive losses. Question posed to visitors. Would 2,000 Me 262s in early 1944 have changed the war outcome? Probably not. Allied material superiority was too great. But it would have made Allied victory far more costly. Hitler's 18-month delay turned a potentially war-changing weapon into a historical footnote. Exhibit 3. Type 21 U-boat. A sectioned Type 21 submarine shows its revolutionary internal design. Triple the batteries of conventional U-boats, streamlined hull for underwater speed, advanced sonar systems. The placard. Type 21 U-boat. World's first true submarine. Previous designs were submersibles. Underwater speed, 17.2 knots, faster than most destroyers. Submerged endurance, 11 days. Revolutionary design that defined Cold War submarines. Total built, 118. Operational, 2. War patrols, 2. Ships sunk, 0. Entered service, March 1945, 2 weeks before surrender. The Type 21 worked perfectly. It was genuinely revolutionary. If deployed in 1943 with adequate numbers, it could have renewed the Battle of the Atlantic and potentially starved Britain. Deployed in March 1945, it fired no shots. Perfect technology deployed too late is worthless technology. Admiral Karl Dönitz quote, 1945. If we had possessed the Type 21 2 years earlier, we would have won the Battle of the Atlantic. This submarine made obsolete every Allied countermeasure, but we developed it too late. It is the story of Germany's war in miniature. Brilliant innovation, catastrophic timing. Exhibit 4. The production comparison. An entire wall displays comparative production statistics, Germany versus the Allies, making the mathematical impossibility of German victory brutally clear. Aircraft production, 1944. Germany, 39,807 total. Fighters, 34,164. Bombers, 2,287. Other, 3,356. United States alone, 96,318 total. Fighters, 38,873. Bombers, 16,331. Other, 41,114. Britain, 26,461. Soviet Union, 40,300. Combined Allies, 163,079 aircraft. Germany, 39,807 aircraft. Allied advantage, 4.1 to 1. Tank production, 1944. Germany, 27,300. United States, 17,565. Britain, 5,000. Soviet Union, 29,000. Combined Allies, 51,565. Germany, 27,300. Allied advantage, 1.9 to 1. The mathematical reality. Germany could not win a production war against this disparity. The only question was whether Germany should pursue A. Conventional weapons in maximum quantities to prolong resistance, B. Wonder weapons that might, theoretically, provide technological edge. Germany chose B. History proves A would have been more effective. Wonder weapons consumed 5.5 billion RM, enough to increase fighter production by 110,000 aircraft, 320% increase. Would tripling the Luftwaffe have won the war? No. Would it have made Allied victory far more expensive? Yes. Exhibit 5. The human cost. The final exhibit shifts from hardware to people. Photographs line the walls, faces of those who paid for the wonder weapons obsession. British civilians killed by V-weapons, 6,184, V-1. 2,754, V-2. Total, 8,938. Photographs show destroyed London homes, grieving families, funerals, forced labourers who died building V-2. 7,000 plus prisoners worked to death in Mittelbau-Dora concentration camp. Brutal conditions, 12-hour shifts, starvation rations, beatings. More workers died building V-2 than civilians killed by V-2. Photographs show skeletal prisoners, overcrowded barracks, bodies. German civilians killed by Allied bombing, approximately 500,000 total. Bombing made possible by German failure to maintain air superiority. Air superiority lost partly because resources went to V-weapons instead of fighters. Photographs show Dresden, Hamburg, Berlin, cities reduced to rubble. Allied aircrew killed, 140,000 total, RAF, USAAF. Deaths that might have been reduced if Germany had prioritized fighter defense over vengeance weapons. Photographs show shot-down bombers, burning aircraft, young men who never came home. The placard, the human cost of strategic failure. Wonder weapons killed 8,938 British civilians, but the resources spent on wonder weapons, if invested in conventional defense, might have saved tens of thousands of German civilians by making Allied bombing more costly. The decision to pursue vengeance over defense had catastrophic human consequences. The final display, Lessons for the Future. The exhibit concludes with an interactive display asking visitors to make strategic decisions. Scenario: You are German Minister of Armaments, 1943. Available resources, 5.5 billion Reichsmarks. Option A, historical choice, wonder weapons. V-1/V-2 rockets for revenge attacks. Me-262 jet fighters with 18-month conversion delay. Type 21 submarines, ready 1945. Advanced tanks, mechanically unreliable. Result: historical outcome, Germany loses, May 1945. Option B, conventional defense. 110,000 additional fighters, improved air defense, simplified, reliable tanks in greater numbers, focus on defending German territory. Result: Germany still loses, but 12 to 18 months later, at far greater Allied cost. Option C, negotiated peace priority. Enough conventional weapons to make invasion costly, no offensive operations. Resources reserved for reconstruction, diplomatic outreach for negotiated settlement. Result: uncertain, depends on Allied willingness to negotiate. Question for visitors: what would you choose? Remember, you cannot win. Allied material superiority is too great. You can only choose how you lose and how many die in the process. What is the ethical choice? Visitors vote electronically. Results display on screen. Option A, historical, 12%. Option B, conventional defense, 54%. Option C, negotiated peace, 34%. Commentary: 88% of visitors would choose differently than Hitler did. This is the advantage of hindsight. But the lesson remains. Emotional satisfaction, vengeance weapons, prove strategically inferior to rational calculation, defensive weapons, or negotiated peace. Modern military planners face similar choices constantly. Invest in revolutionary weapons that might provide an edge, or invest in conventional capabilities that definitely work. The wonder weapons story warns against the seduction of technological salvation. Exit interview. Museum director's perspective. Dr. Klaus Weber, museum director, reflects on the exhibit's purpose. People come expecting to see cool technology, rockets, jets, submarines. And yes, the technology is impressive. The V-2 reached space in 1942. The Me-262 was 20 years ahead of its time. The Type 21 defined modern submarines. But that's not the story we're telling. We're telling the story of how brilliant technology failed because of strategic stupidity. How emotional needs overruled rational calculation. How the pursuit of perfection delayed deployment of adequacy. The wonder weapons failed not because German engineering was inadequate, it was extraordinary. They failed because they arrived too late. Revolutionary weapons that deploy after you've lost are worthless. They cost too much. Resources spent on wonders were not spent on necessities. They solved the wrong problems. Germany needed air defense. Hitler built vengeance weapons. They reflected fantasy, not reality. Hitler wanted to believe technological genius would overcome material disadvantage. It didn't. The lesson isn't, don't innovate. Innovation is essential. The lesson is, innovation without strategic wisdom is worse than useless. It's actively harmful because it consumes resources that could be used effectively. Every country faces this temptation. Every military wants the wonder weapon that will provide decisive advantage. The V-2, the Me-262, the Type 21. They're cautionary tales about the wonder weapon seduction. Sometimes boring adequacy in overwhelming quantities beats spectacular innovation in inadequate numbers. That's not sexy. That's not exciting. But it's often true. Germany learned this lesson the hard way. The question is, will others learn it from Germany's experience? Or must every generation repeat the mistake? Closing scene. A veterans group tours the exhibit. Elderly men in their 90s, former RAF pilots who fought against the wonder weapons. One stops before the Me-262 display. "I saw one of these once," he says quietly. "November 1944. It came out of nowhere, just screamed past our formation at unbelievable speed. Shot down 2 B-17s in one pass, then disappeared before our escorts could react. We were completely helpless." "Were you afraid?" asks a young visitor. "Terrified. We knew if the Germans had hundreds of those things we were finished. But they didn't. They had maybe 50 operational, and they kept running out of fuel. So we kept flying, and they kept not showing up. The technology was scary, but their inability to produce it in adequate numbers saved us." He studies the counterfactual timeline display, showing what might have happened if the Me-262 deployed in 1943. "We got lucky," he concludes. "Hitler's stupidity saved Allied lives. If Germany had focused on defending their cities instead of bombing ours, if they'd built fighters instead of rockets, the war would have cost us far more. Their wonder weapons were a gift to us. They wasted resources on spectacular failures instead of boring necessities." "So innovation is bad?" the visitor asks. "No," the veteran responds. "Innovation is essential, but innovation must serve strategy, not replace it. Germany had brilliant innovation serving stupid strategy. That's why they lost. That's the lesson." He salutes the Me-262, respect for the engineers who built it, contempt for the leaders who misused it, and walks away. The museum remains open. The wonder weapons sit on display. The lesson echoes through the halls. Technology does not overcome strategy. Innovation does not replace production. Brilliance does not compensate for stupidity. Germany's wonder weapons, marvels of engineering, monuments to strategic failure.